Welcome to A Financial Advisor and Pastor Walk into a Bar, Revelation Part 11. Pastor Jason and financial advisor Benjie go to the city of brotherly love, home of the Super Bowl champion Eagles. Well, not really. It's actually the message to the church in Philadelphia. Let's listen in.
I guess going back to 3, right? 3, Revelation 3. So we talked about these white robes getting dressed, and I guess that takes us to the end of it, right? Because you end at 6.
Yep.
So what's this? Whoever hears, I hear that all the time. Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. Is that? I mean, everybody got ears.
Yeah.
I guess they're not all listening. Is that what that is?
Yeah, and you think about Jesus even in his 33 years on the earth.
Yeah.
Those last 3 years, we have Jesus' teaching, and multiple times he says, "He who has ears, let him hear."
Mm-hmm.
And he would give some teaching, and oftentimes he'd give a parable. And the disciples ask him, "We're like, hey, why are you doing this? What do you mean by this? What are you saying?" And it's this understanding of, man, there are some who are spiritually at a place that they are ready to hear.
Yeah.
That God has, it's the crossroads of their life are at such a place where they're at a place they're ready to hear and listen. And then for others, they're not. Maybe it comes later on in life. Maybe, it's just not the right timing. So,
That's true.
If you can understand this and you're listening, then pay attention.
And if you can't, then you probably don't hear me talking right now anyway.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess we can jump to Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Can I talk about it real quick?
Yeah.
All right. Church of Philadelphia, and we're not talking about Pennsylvania.
Nope. There's some connection there, but not the same.
So what's the background with Philadelphia?
So Philadelphia, of course, we kind of joke about, Philadelphia being the city of brotherly love.
Yeah, Super Bowl champ.
There you go. I don't like to admit that, but it is reality. City of brotherly love. Philadelphia gets its, well, first of all, Philadelphia is the second of 2 churches that only receive commendation for what they do. So, right. The way that they could be described is spiritually powerful.
Okay.
They are not powerful because of their physical might, but they are powerful because of their dependency upon God.
Okay.
And so with this is Philadelphia was named for its founder, and I'm going to butcher his name, but basically it's Attalus II Philadelphus.
Okay.
And Attalus was well known for his love and devotion or commitment to his brother. So like his biological brother, he was extremely devoted and committed to him.
Okay.
And apparently his devotion and commitment to his brother was so significant that's where it got noticed, and that's where we get this idea of Philadelphia being the city of brotherly love.
An example of love made itself into a city.
Yes.
Okay.
And so Philadelphus became Philadelphia, but just because of, the brotherly love.
Okay.
And so that's where we get this idea of the city of brotherly love. So Philadelphia is this church that's spiritually powerful. As a church itself, they are very poor, and yet they're outgoing, extremely outgoing in their evangelistic efforts.
Okay.
This church lasted longer, of the 7 churches, this church lasted longer than any of the other ones.
Okay.
This church actually lasted into the 13th century.
Wow. That's
so the 1200s, yeah. So, basically for, 1,200 years after Jesus, this church continued to go on. So this was by far the longest lasting church.
Wow. Okay.
And part of the reason when you begin to study this and understand basically most theologians would say it's because of their evangelistic efforts. Okay. They stay true to that. And Jesus is recognizing for them that for them. But this church was also credited with sending the gospel to India. It is believed that it's through the Church of Philadelphia, because of their evangelistic efforts, that they were sending missionaries, and their missionaries made it as far as India.
Wow.
And so they were the ones who brought Christ to India, which is kind of cool when you begin to study the history of these churches.
Yeah. So Philadelphia is, what is my question? There was a question I was going to ask you about it, with it being around for so long. Oh, was it? So it's the only one that had an accommodation, or
the second one that had the accommodation? The first one that had the accommodation or commendation was Smyrna, which was church number 2.
Okay.
And then now we come into Philadelphia, which is the second church I have a commendation.
Okay. I was just thinking maybe they were, doubly blessed, but
No.
okay, well, that's cool.
And what's interesting with both of these is both of them, we're going to see this a little bit differently in Laodicea in a moment, but both of those churches, Smyrna and now Philadelphia, one of the things that I don't know if it's a contributing factor, but at least it's where they're at, is their poverty level.
Okay.
Their poverty level and their lack of power.
So Laodicea's got a low income as well? Or
No, Laodicea is high,
okay,
which is interesting here in a moment.
Yeah.
As we talk about them. But with Philadelphia, they too are recognized for their poverty and their low position or low status within the community.
Okay, so it's a contrast with they're economically low but spiritually high. And then it's kind of flipped with Laodicea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I see. So anything personal to the church and what Jesus is saying to them here?
Yeah. Great question.
Okay.
So when you look at verse 7, he says, to the angel of the church of Philadelphia write, the Holy One, and Jesus is talking about himself, the Holy One, the true One, the one who has the key of David, who opens and no one will close, and closes and no one opens, says. So Jesus is saying, I am the only one, I'm the Holy One, I'm the true one.
Yeah.
I have the key of David. This key of David is a reference to the ruler of the universe.
Okay.
So if we look in Luke chapter 1, 32 and 33, we see reference to the key of David and this idea of being the ruler of the universe.
Okay.
And so Jesus is saying, that's me.
Yeah. I thought it was He-Man.
Yeah.
Master of the universe.
Master of the universe.
By the power of Grayskull.
I'm going to have fun with that.
Beastmaster.
I'm going to have fun with that edit.
That's awesome.
And everything.
There you go.
All right, anyway. Being so adolescent here. Okay. So he's referencing himself as being the it's not master. What was the phrase?
The key of David, but the ruler of the universe.
Ruler of the universe. Okay, so he's sovereign.
Yeah.
He's saying his sovereignty is here. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna have Davis read it.
Revelation 3 verses 7 to 8. To the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens no one can shut, and what he shuts no one can open. I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word, and have not denied my name.
Anything else that we're looking at here? I know your deeds. I see I have placed before you an open door no one can shut. This is again in reference to, is it related to that key of David? Or is this different? He's talking about a door that's been placed in front of him that no one can shut.
Well, yeah. So, if you think about a key of David, the key being, a key to a door. And so there's natural connection there in that sense. But it's also just, the next verse lets us kind of understand verse 7 a little bit more. He says, I know your works because you have limited strength.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think there's this idea that you have limited strength. You're unable to do a whole lot on your own because of your poverty, because of your low position in community.
Yeah.
But I'm going to open this door because I am the one who holds the key. I have the power to do it. I'm opening this door for you.
Yeah.
Some have even said that this idea of opening the door for you is this idea of opening the door to India, or opening the door to evangelism.
Okay.
That I'm opening this door for you and you are faithful. I see your works and I'm honoring your efforts.
Huh.
And so I'm opening this door for you. Now, that may be a stretch. I don't know, but it is interesting how this church, because of their evangelistic efforts, were able to make such a huge impact.
Yeah.
And so it could make sense that that's this door, this door to evangelism that's being opened before them. And no one's going to be able to close it.
What else would it mean? Or did you see anything else in regards to the open door?
It could simply be this thing of, because of your low or limited strength, you don't really have the opportunity to do anything on your own.
Okay.
And so when forces, whether it be spiritual or physical forces, come up against you, I'm going to open this door and I'm going to hold it open, even though those coming against you may be powerful because you are not.
Yeah,
I've got this.
Okay.
So
well, that's a pretty neat image there.
Yeah.
Okay, so another reference to the synagogue of Satan.
Yep. Claim to be Jews and are not.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Revelation 3 verse 9, I will make those who are of the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews though they are not, but are liars. I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you.
Once again, that idea that, a real Jew would identify Jesus as Lord. These guys are not.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that stood out with Philadelphia, like the city?
The city itself. So one thing that's interesting, if you look at verse 12, it says, the victor, I will make him a pillar in the sanctuary of my God, and he will never go out again. I will write on him the name of my God. So I'm going to hold off for just a second. So this idea of the pillar, it kind of seems like this weird, like, what does that mean? It hasn't talked about a pillar in any other ones.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why. Just like in the last church with Sardis, come like a thief in the night, there's a contextual reference there. So this pillar is a contextual reference as well. This area of Philadelphia was known for their earthquakes.
Okay.
And just, the earthquake happens, it shakes buildings and they collapse.
Yeah.
Well, there in Philadelphia, even still to this day, there is a single pillar from one of their main structures all those many years ago that is still standing to this day. Now, due to time, a couple thousand years or whatever, the erosion and just debris has collected around it, but there is still a portion of this pillar that is still a single pillar still standing, and of course the bottom is not exposed anymore, but it's still there.
Yeah.
Everybody in Philadelphia knew of this pillar because it withstood the collapse when all the other pillars of that building in those areas fell.
Wow.
And so this is a reference saying, hey, just like that pillar is still standing, I will make the same thing happen with you. And so you look at them lasting into the 13th century, they stood like this pillar in the midst of all this collapse around them. So it's kind of cool.
That's pretty cool. That is.
Yeah.
So he's just making these messages relatable.
Yeah.
To the audience.
Yep. And then he goes on to say in verse 12, he goes, I will write on him the name of my God, the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes out of heaven from my God, and my new name. And a couple of theologians just remarked about that idea. There's three things happening. There's three names of God, and they identify them as one, the children of God. I will write on him the name of my God. So there's identity there.
Okay.
If you carry the last name of Esquera, you're a child of Benjie Esquera. Yeah. So there's being a child of God. Secondly is, the name of the city of my God. So there is citizenship and identity as a citizen, a citizen of McKinney. And then the third thing is, which comes down out of heaven from my God and my new name. So heaven, the new heaven, the new earth, conquerors with Christ. And so there's identity as a child of God, there's identity as a citizen of heaven, and there's an identity as a conqueror with Christ.
Wow.
And so it's just kind of cool coming out of that. And like, hey, your position in this world right now, your position is low.
Yeah.
But I don't see you that way.
Right.
I see you as my sons and daughters, and you are conquerors of Christ.
Okay.
And so it's kind of hopeful and encouraging in the midst of everything.
This is the hopeful message that's in there. And okay. And then here we go with whoever has ears again.
Yep.
So,
Revelation 3 verses 10 to 13. Since you have kept my command to endure patiently, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come on the whole world to test the inhabitants of the earth. I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have, so that no one will take your crown. The one who is victorious, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will they leave it. I will write on them the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write on them my new name. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. You've been listening to a financial advisor and pastor walk into a bar. Remember, Benjie and Jason raise more questions than answer them, because God has a message for you, and you're not going to hear it unless you open the Bible and read it for yourself. Thanks for listening.